Hello, welcome back to the Villa View. It's time for the Villa View podcast. I'm not calling it the pod anymore because I don't like it, and a few people complained last week. Even though all the branding says the pod, I'm going to call it the Villa View podcast. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined by Omar. Dolan's ended up working late, so he sent his apologies for the evening, but the two of us will try and get by without his enthusiasm and smiley face. Remember, this podcast is sponsored by Luke Roper, and you can get 20% off at Luke1977 if you use the code TVV20 at checkout. That'll get you 20% off. I have a nightmare with these codes. I just cannot get them right to save my life, even though it's on the screen. Omar, how are you? Stopping your kid from going to bed by the looks of things, recording in the bunk bedroom.
I'm in the bunk bedroom. Yes, I've got a frozen duvet behind me. But yeah, kids are in my bed. I've been in a networking night out, so kids have slept in our bed. So I've been given the small room. But it's fine. I'm good. I'm ready for the pod, mate. I'm ready for the pod.
Don't call it the pod. I've just said I'm not calling it that anymore.
I'm going to call it the pod, mate. I don't care.
Okay, we need some consistency.
I never liked it, to be honest. Never liked the pod, the name.
No.
We're going to have to think of some. Well, when we get some comments at YouTube, get some new name ideas. For the podcast. Or are we just going to stick to the podcast and keep it simple?
I mean, the Villa View podcast works for me. If I'm being completely honest, that's how it used to be. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But Bates has tried to be clever, and I don't think it's gone down too well. So yeah,
he's not happy with that, is he?
No, he's not. I can see him on the screen. Not happy at all. Let's go then. Let's get into the podcast, and we'll start by having a very brief Chelsea chat because you weren't on the post-match point, so I haven't got your thoughts on the game. So let's assess the Chelsea game briefly. I wouldn't say I'm massively upset by it, but he's still a little bit annoying by the fact that we played really well and lost 3-0 because it does make the game look a lot more comfortable than it was.
Yeah.
He can comment, but he can't come on the podcast, but he can comment.
I just saw his comment. I thought maybe he'd laugh off the pod.
Absolutely ridiculous.
No. Yeah, I mean, I did what I normally do, and I watched the game back. So I couldn't go to the Chelsea game. I was at a wedding. Although my mate who next to me was a Villa fan, so we both had it on Sky Go while it was a quiz on. So we were watching it at the same time as the quiz. And
strange wedding. The quiz night or a wedding.
Yeah, it was good. I wasn't sure about it, but it worked really well actually. But anyway, enough of the quiz.
What was the quiz on? I'm sorry. What was the quiz on then? I presume it was on the couple, I presume.
No, it wasn't at all. No, it was
just a general knowledge quiz.
It was like a pub quiz that had like the picture round.
Wow.
You had to get there was
niche.
So it was Mark and Abby who were getting married, and every picture was linked to something to do with them, like their first name or the surname or their nickname. So, for example, Mark Twain was one of the pictures. Abbey Road was one of the pictures. So there was a link there. Then the other rounds were sort of typical rounds, but it actually worked really well.
Any squad numbers round?
No, mate. No. I would have been straight on the phone. I would probably have disqualified, but I would have been straight on the phone.
Phone a friend. I'll let you get back to the Chelsea chat.
Is that what we doing?
Yeah,
Villa. Villa, Aston Villa. Yeah, that's what we're here for. Yeah, I mean, I watched the game back and just so impressed with that first 48 minutes. This is Chelsea, European champions, a team that does not give up chances at all. So solid. They're built on their defense, aren't they? And we were so good. I mean, it's a difficult one because it's either, Dean Smith's formation and his tactics were spot on. I do think Saul, who was playing for Chelsea, obviously had an absolute shocker. That helped us massively because Jacob Ramsey and McGinn just terrorized him and were fantastic. And a lot of our chances were created by, as you said on the pod, pressing high and winning the ball high up the pitch, which is something we've always wanted to see, which we saw early part of last season and we haven't really seen since the turn of the year. And we created so many chances and we looked so good, and just that clinical touch we were missing. I suppose if you are critical, we should be putting away some of those chances. And that is the difference between a top 6, top 4 side and sort of a middle of the road side. So we do need to get better on that front. Defensively, questions, definitely. And it wasn't like we were being run through in midfield. It was just individual mistakes. So I think firstly, Kovacic does really well with their first goal. He obviously
it's a sweeping ball,
and he breaks through the midfield really well. And it's a good ball, but still, even then, Konsa's sort of. First, I thought Konsa was out of position and he should have done better. But then I understand, they're trying to push high up the pitch, so maybe he got a little caught out. Then Tuanzebe, it's a difficult one against Lukaku, £100 million striker. You are gonna try and block that shot first off, but he tries to block it without going down, but ends up sort of sliding across and getting done.
Sold himself, didn't he?
Sold himself a little bit too much, and so you can see Collins' face. He was annoyed with Tuanzebe, but it's one of those. It can happen to any defender in the heat of the moment. The second one's obviously the key one. When even the first 3 minutes, I thought we started fairly well. We had a corner, we were attacking. It was very much the same. I know they made the change with Jorginho coming on, but even then, we still looked really good for those first few minutes. And then that second goal changes everything. And then after that, they tried to switch formations, try to change the way that we played. Didn't really work. We're still attacking, and we're still getting in their box and still trying to make things happen. But it did knock the stuffing out of us. And what I take away from that game is the potential. And we've said it from the start. This team, the players are there. It's like the ingredients that we need are all there. It just needs them all to go into that pot and be cooked into a delicious meal, if you like. And I think that will take time, because I expect us. I've said this before. I expect us to be up and down for the next few months whilst we get a handle on what the right formation is, what the right type of, how players interacting with each other, getting to know each other, playing together. It will come, and I expect us to then push on, maybe December, January times onwards. Maybe be the opposite of last year. But there is no doubt pressure on Villa because we started so well last season. We signed big players. Fans expect us to be performing well, and we haven't got as many points as we should have done. Really, but
there's mitigating circumstances for that, isn't there? There's been a lot going on.
Exactly. The first game, we're playing Ashley Young and El Ghazi in the wing. Watkins is missing. We've had Traore just come back from injury. Bailey just come in. And then the Brentford game, we're missing 5-6 players. I know they're excuses, but they're valid excuses, I think. And in the Chelsea game, it's just one of those games, and Chelsea, they're going to be challenging for the title and may even win it. And all they were on the day were clinical, and they put their bodies on the line as well. Thiago Silva and Mendy were fantastic for them. Were probably their two best players. Lukaku had 20 touches, 21 touches in the game, and he scored 2 goals.
Yeah,
it's just what can you say? We've got to be more clinical. That's the only criticism I have. And the defensive mistakes, it happens. It can happen. And Tyrone Mings there's been a lot made of Tyrone in terms of his mistakes and all that kind of stuff on Twitter. And to be honest, I've taken a back seat on it. I cannot be bothered with the debates. The nuanced debate, it just isn't for Twitter. Everyone's either, Tyrone Mings is the most amazing thing in the world, and it doesn't matter, he makes mistakes, or he's the worst player in the world, he's terrible, he's not even a championship player. That's basically the two ends of the spectrum, and that's what you see on Twitter, and I just cannot be asked for that.
No, I mean, as I said in the show after the game, Tyrone Mings will hold his hand up. He did hold his hands up and say, look, I made a mistake. Won't be the last mistake he makes. He's made mistakes like that before, but if you can't see what he offers this team, then I worry for you watching football, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. But from what you've said, I think a few weeks down the line, if Watkins has those chances, he probably takes one. That was his first start of the season, so it's been a while since he started a game. He's getting his sharpness up. On another day, we don't make those mistakes. Yes, we've got tough games coming up, some really, really tough games. But I think if we were to play most of those teams and play like that, I would be pretty convinced that usually we would take something. So I don't think all is lost. Yes, results haven't been what we've wanted them to be across the first 4 games, and it is a tough run now, but there's plenty to like about this Aston Villa side, and I'm enthusiastic going into this run of fixtures because quite often teams do win games that you don't expect them to, so there's every chance that Aston Villa will do the same. We'll come on to it, but obviously we're getting somewhere near a fully fit squad now, which is something we haven't had. Players available. We haven't had every player available going into this season so far, so that's going to be a big thing for us. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We'll come on to the Everton game shortly, with just a couple of other bits of news before we get on to the match preview section of the podcast. And a few people messaged me about the players' entrance and the new fencing that's around the ground that's blocking now fans from being able to interact with the players before the games, get autographs, get selfies through the fence. few people upset by that. Spoke to someone at the club, and it is 100% COVID related. Absolutely nothing the club can do about it at all. So, yeah, it is what it is. This is the modern world that we're living in. It's horrible, but there's nothing the club can do. So, yeah, a shame, though, because, you know, it's a big part of some fans' days, and getting the young fans meeting their heroes is a big thing, Omar. And it's sad that in the modern age that we're living in with stupid, shitty COVID, that's not going to be able to happen for the foreseeable.
Yeah, it is a big shame, and I mean, I'm just grateful we can go to games.
Yeah, that's true.
That and I think that's where we've got to focus on the positives. I think, you know, it's been a crap 18 months or so, and you know, I think the fact if we're with these types of things, I think the more safety measures we can take that ensures that we can enjoy the actual main part of the game, which is going to away games, going to home games, interacting with our mates and our family members, whatever, and being there, singing, being together. I think as long as we can do that, that's all that matters. And these things are nice to have, and obviously adds a lot to the game. And especially for kids, I think, you know, I remember going to games and meeting the players and that kind of stuff. It's a massive thing, but hopefully it's just a temporary thing, and it means we can then push on and hopefully get back to normality at some stage. But, you know, I think what we've seen with COVID and football and how it's been affected, we've just got to, it's one of the things we've got to take safety measures where they can. And if it reduces it, I don't know what the data suggests, if it will reduce it or not, then it is what it is and we get on with it. But as long as we can go to games, that's the main thing.
Yeah. I don't think he's watching Boris Johnson, but don't you dare, Boris. I know what you might be thinking with winter coming up. Don't you dare. I need Villa Park in my life, and so do many other people as well. Aston Villa women carried on their unbeaten start to the season, Omar. A late point salvaged at West Ham. Remy Allen on the score sheet again, and I watched a fair bit of that game. I've got to say, Remy Allen, shades of John McGinn. Yeah. Excellent in the midfield, and a late goal always augurs well. Augurs well? Yeah. Augurs well? I don't know which one is right. One of them's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, she's just so much energy, added so much to our team. Obviously, former captain of Leicester City, I think it was, and obviously scored against them last time as well. But yeah, just really impressive. And there's been a lot of upheaval in the women's team. Obviously, new coaching team as well, but highly thought of coaching team from what I've read. But you know, we look like a serious outfit, you know, and it's going to be difficult. You know, the gap between what I've noticed with women's football, the gap between the division below and the top league is massive, you know, compared to the Championship and Premier League, for example, on the men's side, that gap is massive. So if you do get promoted, it's a really massive task to even stay in the league. So the fact that we stayed in the league last season is massive. And hopefully we can now push on with obviously the signings we've made as well. I'm really impressed with, is it Pacheco? Maz Pacheco?
Down the left.
Yeah, down the left. I think he's got 2 or 3 megs in that game we're watching. We talk about Megs on our
You love a Megs. You love a Megs.
We do have hashtag Megs watch on our pod, but just really impressive, really skillful, really attacking, good intent as well. So I'm quite looking forward to watching the women's team. I want to try and go to a few games as well this season, trying to take my daughter as well. Yeah, no, that'd be great. I think I really want to get involved, and I think, you know, Villa are in a really good position. Obviously, the owners and Pursler's been at games as well. You know, they really want to push the women's game, the women's team, and invest in that as well. And you know, I think compared to the Premier League, which is obviously a closed shop almost, the women's league is completely different. If you try and push on, spend money, invest in the team, build the right coaching team, then you can do really well in the league and become a top team. And obviously, it's not the same clout as the men's league at this present time, but still, it's a massive growing part of football now, and it's only going to get bigger.
Yeah, it does. Villa seemed a lot more switched on last season. In the second half of the season, it all felt a little bit scattergun. Like a few mistakes have been made in the transfer market, perhaps brought in some people that they shouldn't have done. But it all seems a little bit more switched on now and a bit more astute. So that's good to see. The first couple of games of the season, there we go, 4 points from 2 games. Grabbing that late equaliser, I think that's good sign. So yeah, well done to the women for what they did at the weekend and what they've done so far. Back to the Aston Villa men's team, then let's preview the Everton game. I watched Everton on Monday, a little bit of a scouting mission, and the first half I was thinking, right, good. These look like they can be got. There's something to be had on Saturday. And then in the second half, they looked very good, and I thought, ooh, could be a potential, but not banana skin. But you know what I mean? This game's going to be a bit tougher than I thought it was going to be. They've had a good start, haven't they, Everton? Some good signings. I mean, they spent 50 million on Iwobi. They bought all kinds of attacking players in for silly money over the last 3 or 4 seasons. And then it turns out that actually getting Andros Townsend on a free transfer and Damari Gray for around 1.5 million is what you need to do.
Yeah, very astute business. You know, I thought it was a recipe for disaster, to be honest, with Everton, with Benitez going there. When the fan, we were saying with McLeish, when the fans are not on board, it's just difficult for it to ever work. And I'm not saying it's going to work. Obviously, they've had a good start. You don't know what the long term future is going to be, or the pattern's going to be, and how well they're going to do. But you know, so far so good for them. They're unbeaten, I think, in 5 games. Damari Gray's absolute bargain. I wish I had him in my fantasy team, to be honest.
He's in mine.
I'll put him in now. I've played my wild card, so he's in. No, so he's not going to. Hopefully, that means he's not going to do anything. But just really impressive, you know. Andros Townsend is one of those players. He's hit and miss, and he plays in patches. You know,
but when he hits it, bloody hell.
He does, yeah. But I think, you know, they've obviously spent loads of money. You know, Everton spent. I think we talked. I don't know if we talked about this last year, but the amount of players they've signed for 20+ million. You know, I think it's like 18 players or 14 players.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I can't quite remember. It's crazy amount of money that they've spent, and it hasn't really worked. So the fact that they've, as you say, spent, you know, got some bargain buys in, and they're doing well, is massive for them. Obviously, Rafa Benitez is a top manager. There's no question of that. He'll make them tough to beat. He works so much on the formation, on tactics. It's a big part of his game. He adjusts the team game by game. He adjusts his tactics game by game. He's that kind of manager. Whereas I think we saw with Dino last year, it's almost like a philosophy manager, where he has a philosophy, the way he wants to play, and that's all that matters. We saw a little change to that post-COVID last year, and sort of creeping in last year with Dino in terms of changing formations and tinkering with players, but not too much compared to Rafa, who does like to keep them solid, but does adjust for different teams. So I'll be interested to see how they're set up, because they played last time. They played a 3-4-3 against Burnley.
Yeah, and they changed it, didn't they? Well, he was going to change it, then they scored to equalise, and he still changed it, which I liked. I think that's a sign of a strong manager.
Interesting, yeah, exactly. So I wonder how we'll go. Will we do the 3-5-2 again? Will we match them up? Will we play 3-4-3 with Bailey, Watkins, and Ings? I think Jacob Ramsey was so good against Chelsea. So impressed with him. It's a shame, obviously, that he had to go off. It was a bit harsh, but understandable.
Carrying a booking, wasn't it?
Yeah, it'd be harsh to drop him for this game. So I'll be interested to see how we match up. But yeah, I think, you know, they're missing Dominic Calvert-Lewin, which is obviously a massive miss for them, who's injured. Rodriguez isn't back, I don't think, but I think the rest of the team will pretty much be the same as the one that maybe finished the game against Burnley. But Richarlison, I think, is the danger man for me, because I think he does so much work for them off the ball that he sort of sets the tempo for them.
He's not a typical Brazilian striker, is he? Forward.
He's not.
The way he works,
No, he's not. But I think he's still got massive ability as well. But I think, you know, we can keep Richarlison quiet and get in amongst Decore and Aland, and I think, you know, we've got a chance. And you know, we talked a little bit already about the Chelsea game, but I'm still really excited about this team and this squad. I think we've got the right ingredients. We've got the right type of players. Yes, maybe missing a midfielder, but then I think McGinn and Luiz have started the season so well. I've been so impressed with both of them in terms of their fitness, in terms of their energy, their passing, everything really. They've been fantastic. And now Jacob Ramsey obviously has now stepped up a notch as well. And we know the attacking talent we've got. We know on our day, our defense, our back five can be impeccable. So we've got the right mix there. I just hope this is the game where it just all comes together, and you know, we see off an Everton team. Obviously, we remember the 2-0 Everton win in our first season back, and how amazing that was. And this is obviously an evening game. It would be great to have that kind of atmosphere, that kind of feeling again. Yeah,
it'll be rocking Villa Park on a Saturday tea time. There's absolutely no doubt about that. We touched on it, but great to pretty much have a fully fit squad to choose from. Trezeguet and Davies are obviously long-term absentees, and I think we're waiting for news on Chukwuemeka and Badace. But you know, we've got options now. Whichever 11 he picks, there's players to pull off the bench. I mean, Greg said in our podcast, he doesn't call Dean Smith doesn't call his substitutes. He calls them finishers. So he's got a starting team, and then he's got his finishers as well. So he keeps everyone involved, but to just have options and players to bring on, that's a massive step from last season, because you've never really felt there was anything to change it if the game wasn't going to plan.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, if you think of last season, what was missing from us was the ability to influence the game from the bench and being able to play without Jack. Those are the two things that we were missing. And if you look at the game on Saturday, assuming we play the same or similar team with Martinez coming in for Steer, we're going to have Bailey, Buendia, Traore, Al Ghazi on the bench to come and influence the game. That's massive.
Yeah.
That is massive. And then, if we are losing or we are drawing and we need to win a game, there's some great players there to come on and influence the game. We already saw Leon Bailey. He had a little cameo against Watford and a little cameo against Chelsea, and you can see the type of player he is. I think he's going to be fantastic once you give him a bit of time. Buendia, I read that Buendia Martinez are coming back actually the morning of the game.
Yeah, that's far from ideal. I didn't realise that until today.
So that's going to be a difficult one. So we'll see how they are. I think Martinez will play. I think Buendia will be on the bench. But I think Traore as well. I think he's sort of gone under the radar a little bit with Buendia and Bailey coming in, and El Ghazi obviously starting the season off okay. But Traore's looked on another level to me in terms of his performance levels and consistency.
But that's always going to happen, isn't it? Second season, more settled, full pre-season behind him at the club. Exactly. Now I know he's had injuries, but he looked bright when he came on against Watford. Actually, the subs were the best players in that game. The players that came on, and then he had a nice little shot against Chelsea. That was a nice little cameo as well. Traore as a player with some ability, and he was a starter every week pretty much last season. So like we're saying, to have someone like him, a bit of a maverick to bring on, that's a massive step.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think. You're right, completely right. When you have squad depth, you have competition. That just brings levels up. You have some players that, if there is competition or a player comes in their position, they go the other way, and they might, they might get moody, might have an attitude. But I think the players that we've got are just going to try and compete. And you've already seen El Ghazi last year a little bit, and I think you might see a little bit this year. Whether he's good enough long term, I'm not too sure. But I think someone like Traore, second season, like you just said, I really think he might come into his own this season. Whether it's off the bench or in odd games, I do think we'll change it up a little bit more this year and be a bit more flexible in our formation and personnel. But I can see him having a good season. I can see him influencing games. And more importantly, last year, his stats were good in terms of assists and goals, but he was inconsistent in terms of his general performance. A bit like Al Ghazi is, he scores important goals, but then his general play can be inconsistent. I expect, and I think we'll see Traore's levels go up in terms of his actual contribution to the game, in terms of just the general play, linking up play, keeping hold of the ball, making things happen. I think we've already seen that a little bit, and I think we'll see a lot more of it.
Yeah. Back onto Everton then, obviously no Calvert-Lewin is a boost, but I will say that they wouldn't have scored 3 goals in a game last season without Calvert-Lewin, so you can see the improvement the Rafa's already made there. The fact that they did score 3 against Burnley, who can be tough to break down, coming from behind as well, so all positive signs for Everton. I'm mainly worried about their midfield. Gary Neville and Carragher spoke a little bit about Doucouré on Monday Night Football. He's a fantastic player, but perhaps was not utilised in the right way last season under Ancelotti. He was played more as a deep-lying defensive midfielder when he really is, he is a box-to-box player. Plays with fantastic energy, got fantastic athleticism, really, really quick. So far this season, he's popping up in the opposition box all the time and wreaking havoc in there. He was very good again on Monday night against Burnley. He's the kind of player in midfield that I feel that Villa have struggled against. When there's a bit of a physical player in there, that's the games last season that I felt Villa struggled in a little bit. They're going to have to curtail him because I actually think he's their key man. I know you said about Richarlison. Yeah. I think Doucouré is their key man and kind of goes a little bit under the radar so far this season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He's obviously started the season really well. Along with Gray, have probably been the 2 standout players, I think. I'm hoping that Jacob Ramsey is the one, because he seems to be stronger, quicker, bigger. He seems probably the most physical out of all the midfielders that we've got.
Yeah, he likes to mix it now.
He likes to mix it, and you saw him against Chelsea. You've seen him a few times now against Watford, especially. I thought because Watford were a very physical midfield they had. And we struggled big time in that first half. And Ramsey came on and changed it. And I think he's going to be key against Doucouré if he does play. Because I think you're right, Doucouré, where he did well for Watford was breaking late into the box, scoring goals, making things happen, making a nuisance himself in the box. And I think Alan allows him to do that, because obviously Alan just sits there and shields the
Yeah,
defense.
he's a Champions League level player, Alan.
Exactly, yeah, and I also think their fullbacks as well. Everton's fullbacks, Lucas Digne and Coleman, a bit like how we played that first half. I thought Cash and Target were brilliant, going up and down, but they rely a lot on their fullbacks for their energy to go up and down, and almost create space for Townsend and Gray to pick pockets up in and outside the box to make things happen. So yeah, I think Decore will be. I think it's going to be a difficult game. I really think Everton obviously in good form. We are not in good form, but I just fancy us. I just fancy Saturday night, Villa crowd. It's going to be rocking. We the signs are there against Chelsea, and I just think it's going to come together. If it doesn't come together, then it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be 4 points from 5 games or 5 points from 5 games, depending on what happens. And pressure does begin to build. Then, and, I'm not Dean Smith out at all. A complete opposite, actually. I think the talk that's been out there is farcical, to be honest. But
it's completely false as well, by the way.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, of course it is. I don't think these owners, all you have to do is just listen to the interviews that we've had this season with Tyra Mings, especially talking about how ideally would love to be in Europe and challenge for Europe, but they're realistic that they've lost their best player and the talisman, and we're having to rebuild a little bit more. And I hate saying it's a transitional season. It's not a transitional season. We know we still need to progress, but we're still finding our way almost with these new players, and it may take a little bit of time. So as long as we can continue to push on, finish where we were last season, maybe a little bit higher, then I think that's all you can ask for. And I think that's probably all the owners want, to be honest. I think they're pretty realistic about where we are at in terms of as a club and what we're pushing them forward. They're not looking for overnight success. They're looking for sustainable success. And someone who promotes youth as well. I think that's key. We've seen that already, and Dino does that massively. Who's to say if they're bringing a new manager? I've seen, Conte. I've seen other things. Will they bring in the youth? Will they do what Dino does? I don't know, but that's not to say that if you continue to lose games and continue to do well, I think these owners will pull the trigger. They're ruthless enough to do that. They're not going to stick by Dino just because he's a Villa fan. But I think that talk is very early on, very, very premature. And I think, I said from the beginning, it's going to be up and down. We just need to stick with them. If the results don't turn and we're still struggling in January, February time, then albeit, that's when you think about a change, or you think about what needs to happen to improve us. But for now, 4 games in, I saw someone saying, last season, 4 games in, we had won 4 games. It's not progress. We haven't done well this season. I said, it's a completely different situation, completely different environment. You've got to judge at the end of the season, or at least halfway through the season. Yeah. That's when you maybe begin to judge. I think anything earlier than that is just pointless.
Yeah, it was a classless piece of journalism. I don't know why I'm even giving it the time of day. And as I say, I've spoken to people at the club, absolutely, completely false. No truth in it whatsoever. So, yeah, I just don't get it at all. Someone that's improved you year on, year out, why would you have any complaints? And the season's a bit more in flux, I think, Omar, than we maybe thought it would have been at some stage. But, that's the way it is. That's the way the land lies. And I think we'll improve. I think we'll get better as the season goes on. I think it will be the opposite of last season. As we've said, we didn't end last season particularly well, the second half of the season, but I think this second half of the season will be a lot better, albeit we may have a more shakier first half of the season than we perhaps anticipated. Back to the midfield then, because Decore and Alan, I said that's a strong suit in Everton's armour there. You would say we probably have to play 3 central midfielders, wouldn't you? So what formation does that leave us playing, in your opinion?
I think probably similar to what we did against Chelsea, to be honest. I don't see.
You think we'll play 3 at the back again?
I think we might match them up. Yeah, I think we might play 3-5-2. I think it worked really well.
It did.
I think it suits some of our players, especially. I think we look better with 3 in midfield, and it's weird to say because I've been talking about how we'll end up playing 4-4-2, but I think in certain games, I think we'll be flexible. I think Dino will change it up depending on the game. I don't think it's going to be like last season where we were just like a rigid 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. I think it will change it up. I think he'll match them up because Everton are in good form. They've done well, and they probably will play again a 3-4-3. And that midfield is key. I think we'll match them up. I've got a feeling. My only concern, I suppose, the question to you was, I did think Danny Ings was very quiet against Chelsea. It wasn't really in the game. I thought Watkins was impressive, albeit his finishing wasn't there. But just, he just looked sharp, and he looked energetic, as he always does, and he put himself about a bit. I thought that would work really well for Danny Ings. I thought he would feed off the scraps, link up play, drop deep, but he didn't really seem to do that. He sort of out of the game. What do you think? What do you think about that partnership developing in this type of 3-5-2 formation, or do you think it has to be a 4-4-2?
I think it was. I think it was just a one-off game for Danny Ings. I mean, the chances didn't fall to him; they fell to Watkins. Sorry, you notice Watkins a bit more just because of the nature of the way he plays the game, the pressing, he forces mistakes from defences. The chances fell to Watkins last week. There's nothing to say that it won't be the chances falling to Ings this week. I mean, when things dropped as well from set pieces, it was like to Mings, it was to Consi. Every one of those chances falls to Danny Ings. It ends up in the back of the net. I think it was just an off game. He couldn't get himself involved. You're not going to play well every single week, but before that, he had 3 goal contributions in 3 games. I thought when Watkins came on against Brentford, Ings and Watkins looked bright as a pair. We looked a lot better when those two were on the pitch together. This will be a different game. This will be not saying easier game, but you'd expect a game against Everton at home to be less tough than a game against Chelsea. If we play like we did against Chelsea, Ings will get chances. We'll make things happen. We'll win the game if we play like that. It's just getting that consistency and getting that rhythm, because they haven't played enough together.
Yeah, he's got a good record against Everton as well. I think from memory, and I think you're right. I'm not saying don't play him together. I'm just saying, how do we make it work? And he's been fantastic. I think to have 3 goal contributions already straight away. That's why we signed him.
Takes the pressure off.
He takes the pressure off. The reason why we spent 25-30 million on a 29-year-old is because we needed an immediate impact. It's not like Traore or Trezeguet or Luiz or in Watkins to an extent where we're like, well, we'll give them a season, let them bed into the team, and then we'll see them push on. This is like, we need an impact now. We need someone to replace Jack's contributions ASAP. And that's why we've brought him in, and he's done that to some extent already. But just wondering how it's going to work. I'm hoping what I see from him is how he played with Southampton, because they played that 3-5-2 sometimes as well. Is him dropping deep and being that link player, linking midfield and the attack, because I think he's got that ability. He can sort of drop deep, fill in those pockets, and sort of make chances from there. Link up with Watkins. We sort of saw that in the preseason friendly where they were doing nice little 1-2s and stuff. Yeah. And that's the kind of thing I'm hoping. Obviously, the Premier League game is a different level, so it's not always going to be like that. But I suppose the other side of the argument is, if those chances fall to Ings, you expect he probably scores at least one of them. Yeah, because that's the type of finisher he is.
They won't play every game together, Watkins and Ings. I look at Leicester as an example last season. They had Vardy and Iheanacho in tandem for some games. Other games, Vardy led the line on his own, and he started the season off leading the line on his own. I mean, they got Patson Daka to choose from as well, so they got 3 very good strikers to choose from at Leicester. But you switch your formation, you switch your team depending on how you play, and that's how it always should be. And Villa and Dean Smith haven't had the luxury of doing that until now, so they'll play together this weekend. But I wouldn't expect to see them together every week. It may be that we rock up at Old Trafford, and it's just Watkins and Ings comes off from the bench in that game. We'll change it up on a game by game basis. We've already seen that this season. I think we've already used 21 players, which is the most in the Premier League, and I think it took us till February to use that amount last season. So that's an astounding amount of players this early on in the season. And again, that points a little bit to the disruptive start of the season that we've had to use so many. So we'll change it up. Those two, I've got absolutely no worries about them. They'll both comfortably be towards 15 goals this season, and if they are, Villa will be riding high in the league, and it'll be a good thing. Let's have your prediction then, Omar. You sound confident. Give me your prediction.
Yeah, I think there'll be goals in the game, and I think it's going to be 3-2 to Villa.
High scoring.
I think it'll be a good game. It's the most played fixture, isn't it?
Yeah, in the top flight
league football.
Yeah.
So yeah. Oh, look, there's someone else has gone for Goalfest 3-2 as well. Yeah. So yeah, I'm going for that. You?
I'm going to go 2-1. I'm going to stick to my prediction that I did earlier on my Who Scored podcast. I'll go for Aston Villa 2, Everton 1. Although in the back of my mind, I think that prediction's coming a bit more from the heart than the head. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking that it might be a draw. I had a feeling for a draw against Brentford, and it was. But no, I'll stick to my guns. I'll go with 2-1, but it'll be a tough game. Everton are a good side, and they're not messing around under Benitez. I think that shows as well. You see the reaction to Benitez on social media compared to the reaction to him in the ground. It's night and day. just shows you the kind of football fan that you can see on social media. Not everyone, small minority, but yeah, you can see some absolutely wild things on social media. But what you see at the games are completely different. Let's move on now and focus in on our hot topic this week. And this week we've plumped for John McGinn, who was outstanding against Chelsea. Looks like he's been on some kind of regime since the Euros, Omar. Looks a lot trimmer, a lot fitter. He says himself he's cut a lot of things out of his diet in terms of drinks and food. I think he may have mentioned the Scottish beer or lager Tennent's at one point in an interview. He looks leaner, he looks fitter, getting around the pitch very well. We've seen at times McGinn's had to play deep for Villa last season. Again, lack of options. John McGinn's had to curtail his game a little bit and play deeper. But after watching him against Chelsea, I've always quite liked him in that deep midfield role because I think his passing sometimes is a lot better than he's given credit for. But when you see his hustle and bustle against a team like Chelsea, where he's caused them, the European champions, big problems in central midfield, you realise that to get the best out of him, you have to play him in that box-to-box role, which if we do end up playing 4-4-2, is going to be very, very hard. There's his stats up on the screen so far this season. Thanks very much to Ben for sorting those out. Where do you stand on that? Because if it is 4-4-2 long-term, I know we've said we'll switch it up on a game-by-game basis. We aren't going to be able to get the best McGinn, are we?
No, I think with McGinn, you've got to let him off the leash a little bit. You've got to let him just run.
Especially now Jack's gone.
Yeah. I think he's obviously going to be so important to us. He's not a talisman or anything like that. I don't think that's the case. But I think he knows he's got a bit of responsibility on his shoulders now. And I think he's playing like that.
He's taken on a leadership role now, hasn't he, vice captain?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think I've just been impressed with just his energy, which we know he's got in abundance, but just his work rate in terms of winning the ball back and high up the pitch. It's something that we didn't see from last season, obviously, because he was playing such a deep role. But I think we're seeing the best of McGinn because we're playing to his strengths.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that we've got Louise and Ramsey in there now, I think it helps him massively, because I think Louise under the radar a little bit. But
good start to the season for Duggar.
Good start to the season. I think he's been really good, really impressive. And back to his form that we saw at post-lockdown a couple of seasons back. But I also think Jacob Ramsey, the physicality he brings to our midfield, which we were lacking, helps McGinn out massively as well. And he's running off the ball as well, gives McGinn an option. I still think, I was very critical of McGinn last season at times, just because I expect so much more of him, because I know how good he can be. And he just didn't look fit sometimes, but also his passing and his control let him down. And I think that is McGinn could be the complete midfielder. He could be. He's got it in his locker. He just needs to work on his passing a little bit more. But I think we've seen a better version. You saw pre-season, they're talking about how they were working on McGinn's passing, short game passing. And I think we've sort of started seeing the fruits of that labor, because I think his passing has been a lot better this season. And his interplay between Louise and Ramsey and the wingers has been a lot better this season. Whereas I think last season he was, at times he'd played too many hopeful balls, too many Hollywood passes, try too much almost, try and do everything himself, not look for the easy option. Whereas I think you saw in Chelsea, he was playing progressive passes, but playing nice, crisp passes to feet, which I think last season may have not always been there. And I think just the only thing missing from McGinn's game at the moment, I think he's probably been our best player this season. I think the only thing missing from McGinn's game was more goals. I think he's obviously scored against Watford, which was a great goal. I think he gets in so many good shooting positions. I think he should do better than he does with his shots, because they do tend to go high and wide. And I think if you can work on that and get a bit more consistent, get more on target, then we don't really need another midfielder, because he can do two people's jobs on his own. But just impressive. And I think, like I said, I think he's taking responsibility on his shoulders to say, this is my club. I need to get this club back to where it belongs, and I'm going to take that responsibility to do that in midfield. And I think that's what we've seen. And I think he's been our best player this season.
I agree with that comment that just flashed up from Scotty UK saying McGinn should be getting 5 to 10 goals a season. I absolutely agree with that. If he's playing the role that he's playing at the moment all the way through the season, I'd be disappointed with anything less than 6 or 7 from him, because he's capable. I think that's the thing with McGinn. I mean, I give out praise quite readily to players on Twitter. I find myself not doing it to McGinn that often, which is a little bit weird. But I think it's because, like you said, I hold him to such a high standard. And I don't think he's always reached those really high standards that I've got for him. He's had good games, don't get me wrong, but I'm talking about the games up there where I'm thinking the level that I think he can get to and the level I think he can play at. I don't think there's been enough of that since he returned from his injuries. He had a couple of injuries, didn't he? He came back after lockdown and it was a struggle for him. He wasn't fit last season. I don't think we ever saw the true best of John McGinn. I think he only scored 2 goals last season, which isn't all down to him. It's down to the way we were playing as well in the second half of the season. But I just have such high expectations of him. I find myself not giving out praise. Whereas already this season, I think there's been a couple of games where I've given out high praise for him and think he looks the part. So this could be a really big year for John McGinn. And I did a podcast with Greg earlier on in the week for The Athletic, and he was actually saying he thinks, he's not trying to sell him or anything like that before anyone has a pop. He thinks McGinn could be a top 4 level player in terms of his ability. You know, like I just said, Alan is a Champions League player playing for Everton. Greg thinks that McGinn is that level. Would you agree with that?
I think he has games where he is that level. I just don't think he's consistent enough. I think his touch lets him down at times. And then at times he looks like he's got the touch of Ronaldinho. You know, that is a problem with him. You know, sometimes you see him, he'll play like a random pass to no one. A ball will come in the air and he'll go 20 yards in front of him. And then other times he'll play an inch perfect ball. You're they're dying there. Okay.
A little cough. I'm constantly ill at the moment. Don't know what's going on.
But then he'll play like an inch perfect pass to the back post, or he'll take a touch, take it past 2 players, and do all manner of things. And you just don't know what you're going to get. And I think if you can find that consistency, which we've seen so far this season, I think he's been very consistent, and you can get that throughout the season, then that is what separates the top players from the good players, is that consistency and its end product. And, you know, as Scotty, I think Scotty, who said 5 to 10 goals, you know, he's got to be getting near 10 goals. If he's playing that a number 8 position, number 10 position, where he's getting in the box, he's getting edge of the box, having shooting chances, and he's got to be getting goals and assists. And that's going to be the key. And if he does, then, you know, like you said with Ings and Watkins, if they're getting goals, likewise, if McGinn gets that end product, we're going to be flying higher up the pitch.
Yeah, one thing that really impresses me with him that, again, I think goes under the radar is the acceleration off the ball. You don't associate him with being massively quick. I'll tell you why, he gets going very, very quickly. And you saw against Chelsea, you know, when he put their players under pressure, he's a good tackler as well. You know, he won the ball back for Villa high up the pitch a number of times, and that's where you want to use John McGinn. I remember I think it was either Dean Smith's first game or John McGinn's first game. He was winning the ball high up the pitch and we were creating chances from it. I mean, we went on, I think Codger went on and put them both wide. But, you know, he was winning the ball high up, and that's what you want to see because that's what he's good at. Yeah. So it's about getting the best out of your good players. And I don't think we did that with McGinn last season in fairness, but I think now's his time to really take his game up a level and be that real talisman and key man for Villa, because there's a space there to be that talisman now Jack's gone.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, we need that. We need that player to take the game the scruff of the neck and sort of drive us forward in midfield. And I suppose my only concern is something you said at the beginning is, you know, as a 2, both Dougie and McGinn have struggled in the 2. Let's be frank, let's be honest. Will, you know, although they both do look fitter and hungrier and stronger, will that be the case this season if they do play in the 2? I guess we'll see. That, you know, we'll have to wait and see. I do think Ramsey's made a massive difference in that midfield and to help them out massively. I honestly don't know. I think we need to give it a try. We will have to try, because obviously we want to play Ings and Watkins together. We're not going to play 3 at the back all the time. We want to get, you know, Buendia, Bailey, etc. playing as well. So
it's going to be hard. It's good. It's hard because those three are going to take some shifting from the team now, I'd say, because they all complemented each other really, really nicely. It's a terrible example because largely we were terrible during that season. But I remember when we had Westwood, Cleverley and Delph in there, and when things were going well under Sherwood, as I say, this is a terrible comparison because we were largely a poor side at that point. But I remember that period just thinking those 3 complemented each other really well. They all did a little bit of something different. I feel that with those 3, they all offer certain traits, and it's a nice mix in the midfield when you've got those 3 playing. But then you can't get Buendia and Bailey in the team probably if those 3 play, or Ings has to miss out, or Watkins has to miss out. It's a good problem to have. I mean, I've said it so many times in this podcast already. Having options is imperative, and we've got them now. And when everyone's fit, people are going to be fighting to get into that 11, and that's a really good thing.
Yeah, it's a squad game, you know, and that's what it is now. You know, you see it all the time now. Players influence games from the bench much more now than they did 5-10 years ago. And although you might not be starting the game, you're probably still going to get 20, 30 minutes to make a massive difference in the game and have an impact. And that's still important, I think. I think you'll see, we've seen it already, Dino will make a lot more subs this season than he did last season, whether that's to shut up shop or whether that's to get more goals or get us back in the game. I just think we've got the options now and he's going to use it. Whereas I think he was always hesitant to use the bench before because he just didn't think the players were going to make a difference. And he didn't see the point, which is it's one of those positions because we're building a new squad. We're new in the league. That's going to happen. But now I think we've got an established Premier League team, and we've got a really good squad. Still a couple of holes need to be filled, but we will change formations. We will win games from the bench. We will save games from the bench. It's going to be one of those seasons, I think, where it's going to be every game is going to be slightly different in terms of how we play, the personnel that we play. Not there'll be consistent games. We'll 3-5-2 works for us and we win games. Obviously, they'll keep it that way, but I do expect a little bit of chopping and changing here and then, and that's the way the Premier League is. You see the top sides, they all do it, and we'll have to do it to an extent as well.
Yeah, you'll always have that settled core, but of 5 or 6 that will always play. But yeah, I agree with you. There'll be plenty of changes this year. Let's finish then with a big question. And out of respect for Dean Smith and to rubbish those nonsense rumours, just another key facet of Dean Smith's time at Aston Villa has been the constant improvement of certain players. And Tyrone Mings, Jack Grealish, Emi Martinez, Dougie Luiz and Ollie Watkins have all won their first international caps under Dean Smith, which is an incredible piece of management, really. He said about developing human beings and developing players in the week. That's what he's concerned with, and it shows. That's a fantastic stat over the last couple of seasons that many players have gone on to get their first cap, not for top countries as well, not just for anyone. These are top countries that those players have won their caps for. So the question is, and joining in the live chat as well, but I think we know the answer, Omar. But who is the next to win their first cap at the international level under Dean Smith?
Well, I mean, we're all thinking it. We all know who it is, and he should already have a cap, by the way. No, it's Ezri Konsa. He's again been not as playing at high level he was last season, but still not far off. I think he's still been good, but just the way he reads the game, the way he plays the game, how effortless he makes defending seem. I think it's got to be Konsa. I think he's there. He's almost there. I think, and I think as long as we continue to keep clean sheets like we did last season, obviously it's not been the best of starts, but once we get Martinez back and we get a bit more settled, and hopefully we'll see that. I think it'd be so hard to keep him out. I don't think we've got a massive amount of good defenders in the England setup. It's probably an area where you can make a challenge for, compared to say the wingers that England have got. I think centre backs is still an area where we could potentially, there could be a few changes before the World Cup. Then I think Konsa for me.
Yeah, you think of Godfrey and Ben White having caps before Konsa. I'm not sure about that. He was exceptional last season. I think he started the season pretty well as well. I thought he was good against Chelsea on the outside of the back three. Actually, I thought that suited him, and he did actually get involved going forward as well. He's a better footballer than I think some people perhaps realise he is. Got everything that you need for a modern day centre back, really. So it would make sense that he's the next to get his
right
first
back
cap
as well. I think.
Yeah, very good. Just a good defender. Doesn't really matter. Yeah. I mean, people are going to, I'm not digging Tyrone Mings at all. People say, well, Mings makes mistakes. Yes, I know he does. But I just love Tyrone Mings. But Ezri Konsa, he doesn't really make mistakes. Doesn't really give the ball away. He's very, very astute, very athletic, very good defender, very athletic, as I've said. And yeah, I think he's probably the next one to get the cap. Emi Buendia is probably going to be one that gets a cap soon as well. I'm not sure Dean Smith can take full credit for that one, but technically, I suppose that would answer the question. But yeah,
I think Matty Cash for Poland, maybe.
Yeah, I did. I heard murmurs last season that he was going to declare for Poland. That's all gone quiet, actually.
But on Mings, I think just quickly, I think it's all right to say he makes mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, Tyrone Mings says he makes mistakes.
He needs to improve his game, definitely. But at the same time, what he brings to this team massively outweighs any mistakes he makes. And yeah, he can be better. But I think if he didn't have those mistakes, he'll be playing for a top 3, top 4 club, because that's how good he can be on his day. And there's a reason why he's in the England squad. As simple as that, really. But anyway, I would digress. But yeah, I think I thought Target last season would be close, but I think it's Luke Shaw, Chilwell. Although
Chilwell's having a bit of an off time at the moment, isn't it?
A bit of an off time at the moment, yeah. But I still think Targets are probably a bit way off that. And apart from that, I can't really think of of too many. If Jacob Ramsey keeps progressing, then maybe him. I know Aaron Ramsey is highly thought of in the England setup. I was speaking to a coach who's involved in the England setup, and they've got massive hopes for Aaron Ramsey, apparently, which you've sort of seen with obviously him being called up. I think it was in the 21s, wasn't it?
Fast tracked, I would say.
Fast tracked, yeah. So we'll see. But Jacob Ramsey, you see what Jude Bellingham's doing at his age, and obviously Jacob Ramsey's probably got a bit of a way to go yet. But Konsa's the obvious one.
Yeah, I think most people probably, I haven't got it in front of me, but I'm imagining most in the chat would have said Ezri was going to be the next one under Dean Smith's management to get that first cap. I think that does us for this week's podcast. Just a thanks to Luke Roper for continuing to sponsor this midweek show. And don't forget that code TVV20 if you want to get 20% off all those garments. We'll be back on Sunday for a Purity post-match point, looking back on the Everton game. Fingers crossed we're talking about 3 points to Aston Villa Football Club. There'll be a match day experience as well from young Liam Bryan, so please try and support his videos, because we're trying to help him progress. He wants to get into the media world as well, and he's a fantastic young lad. So yeah, please support that video as well when it comes out. Thanks to Omar for joining me. Dolan on the naughty step for cancelling last minute. We'll see you on Sunday. For those going to Villa Park on Saturday, enjoy the game. See you soon. Up the Villa.
Up the Villa. Go on, boys.